Well, I'm Dane, and this is Dan Explains. A presidential election year has rolled around in the United States again. Every time this happens, the controversial way in which the U.S. elects a president comes up. Specifically, the Electoral College. Virtually no other nation on Earth uses such a system. Most use a direct election system where their president is elected via simple majority. Why does the U.S. use the Electoral College to elect their presidents? Let me explain why. There have been quite a few movements over the years to replace the United States Electoral College system with a direct election system. Twice in the last 25 years, the president who won the popular vote lost the election. That was Bush versus Gore in 2000 and Trump versus Hillary in 2016. With Bush and Trump coming out on top in those two elections, in spite of the fact they didn't get the popular vote. In fact, even with the Electoral College, Bush only won by a margin of 600 votes in the state of Florida. So, as you might imagine, the desire to replace the system with a direct one has been strong, especially among Democrats, since their party was on the losing end in both of these recent elections. Although it could be argued that in those cases, the Electoral College operated exactly how it was designed to, and not siding with the majority. Although many of the founding fathers of the United States were actually in favor of selecting a president using the majority vote. Up until the Revolutionary War, the United States had been separate colonies. So, more like countries, rather than how we see the states today. Because of that, people from small states especially were afraid of something they called the tyranny of the majority, where the high populous states would have near complete control over the federal government. So, those states were in favor of several novel ideas. One of those was the Electoral College system. Each state would select electors apportioned by population in the same proportion as their congressional representatives. If the apportionment were to result in a state getting less than 3 electors, then the state would get to appoint 3 electors anyway. This gave the small states slightly more power in presidential elections. However, the Constitution didn't dictate how those electors were appointed. So, initially, the states didn't hold elections. Their state legislatures would appoint them directly. Eventually, all the states would switch over to elections to select their electors. Unlike today, voting for president was more like voting for your congressional representative. Nowhere on the ballot would the presidential candidate's name appear. Instead, each congressional district would have people running to be electors, and those electors would be voted on by the people. So it's their names they'd see on the ballot. This made sense back then, because most people would have no clue who a presidential candidate was, or what they stood for. However, as political parties arose and took a majority in some states, the leaders of those states decided to let the political parties themselves pick their own electors, which would all be apportioned to one candidate or another. That way, the winning party would get more power over who became president. So in those states, the people would vote for whichever candidate was selected by their party, and in turn the slate of electors that were chosen by that party. When the states started to switch over to the new way of appointing electors, the original founding fathers fought to stop it, arguing that the election of electors rather than slates of electors was their original intention. But it would be nice if they still had founding fathers around to tell us what their original intention was. Although, in this case, they were ignored. Eventually, all of the states switched to electing slates of electors, and, for the most part, bound them to the candidates they were pledged to. There are 2 exceptions to that, Maine and Nebraska, which apportion their electors to their candidates. But this brings us to the modern system, which is arguably much closer to election by popular consensus than the original electoral system put in place by the founding fathers. But it still retains some of the protection for small states. Since the candidates who were elected without the popular vote in the recent elections definitely better reflected the political sentiments of most of the least populous states. Now, you could argue that's not ideal for a democracy, but then again, the US is not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, and other topics ranging from theology to science, Please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon to get extra content and special perks. Link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.